Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh Helpline Mental Health and Suicide Campaign with myself, Satnam Singh. On today's show, we have Sameer Munjal and Daljit Singh from the Human Hub Therapy. So guys, straight over to yourselves. The Human Hub Therapy, what is it?
Thanks, Satnam. So the Human Hub Therapy is a small private practice. I provide trauma-focused psychotherapy. So I'm a qualified psychotherapist, registered with the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, MBACP. And I work with adolescents, adults that typically have experienced some kind of complex trauma in life.
And Daljit Singh?
So my name's Daljit Singh, and I hold a master's degree in cognitive neuroscience and neuropsychology. Also write and deliver training programs to various government agencies, including the NHS, as well as various private organizations ranging from professional sport all the way through to media.
Okay, and that's nothing small. That's quite a bit of a large scale of support and coaching you're giving to. Well, when you say government, that's quite massive. That is. Yeah. So, what made you start this support group?
Well, personally, I wanted to work more within the South Asian community. A lot of my clients aren't from that community, so I wanted to offer a service. And then Daljit and I were talking about the recent tragedies that have happened within the communities, and we thought, well, there's a lot of awareness building around things, but what are people actually doing about things? And we've got qualifications, we have an interest, we have a South Asian background, so we had to put it together. It was a calling.
Absolutely. And typically, when you've started this, what is it what's your end game for this? Is it just helping out, or is it just getting a message, or is it what is it that you're trying to achieve with the Human Hub?
Well, with the Human Hub, anyone that enters the world of mental health, psychotherapy, counselling, it typically is a calling. So that's why people tend to do it a little bit later in life, after they've had some life experience. They've gone through certain things themselves that they've worked through. But in terms of the support groups, for us, this is service to the community.
And Daljit, you touched on the fact that you educate and you coach government officials, NHS and other private sectors. So if you're the people teaching them and they're helping us, one would say we might come direct to the source and search yourselves. How did you obtain that level of service to coach somebody at that level? What is it that you went through to get that? Because it's not easy, is it? You can't just get up one day and the NHS says, yeah, come on, we want you to train us. How did that happen?
So I built up over a number of years, over basically the best part of a decade. I've built experience in various forms of teaching and training and things of that nature, and I've worked in corporate training as well. And then later on, when I actually did the masters, then I had access to a whole range of other information. And my interest has always been, how do we get useful information to the people that need it the most? And the rest is history, as they say. You connect with people, you end up working in various organizations, and where people think you're a good fit for the service that you can provide, they put you forward. So it's a real privilege to work with people who are actually doing such great service for others. And what hopefully that means, and what our intention is if we can get the information in the hands of the right people who have a lot more contact with the public, then that information can ripple out and flow, and more people can benefit from it.
Well, there you see that's Baji talking about the Sikh Helpline here and other organisations, that if you are suffering, or if there's anything that you see that you need support on, please contact the Sikh Helpline, and we have, as you can see, qualified trained professionals on board to help and give you that service that they so desire. Moving on to another one, we've got about young Asian males. We're hearing, more suicide cases within the Asian community, especially in males. I mean, it's open to any one of you, Sameer, Daljit, whoever feels more confident. Why is that?
Well, statistically speaking, 75% of suicides, successful suicide attempts, are by males.
Yeah.
So this has occurred across the board. Within the Asian community, I think there's a lot of stigma and silence around issues like this. And I think one of the things that has changed recently is perhaps it's not that this is occurring more frequently, perhaps because we live in the advent of social media, these things are becoming more and more public, because we are now hearing about people who we otherwise might not have encountered, and we're seeing their picture and seeing their faces, and there's this outpouring of kind of grief and sympathy from within the community. And if we turn the clock back to before everybody was on Instagram, before everybody was on Facebook, these exact things were happening and they were just being swept under the carpet. We just weren't hearing about it.
So what would it make somebody want to take that step? What are the indicators? Like what is it that you can, well, maybe not the indicators, but what would somebody be going through to actually go to that step to take their life? What could it be, Sameer?
There's so many factors. Depression is quite a common thing amongst people that take their lives by suicide. Culturally speaking, we're finding in the support groups as well that there's a strong cultural element to it. Of course, stigma, guilt and shame around talking about mental health, around experiencing mental ill health. Have I achieved enough in life, for example? Am I doing as well as others? And now again, with social media, we're from a generation where we have lived a little bit without social media, but now you can compare yourself instantly to millions of people across the world, in the same community. So there's more to compare yourself to.
Sameer, you said we're from a time period where social media wasn't active in us growing up, because I am from that time period as well.
As much as I don't like to say it.
The people in your own family and in your own community at that point used to compare you to others. So-and-so's daughter's done this, so-and-so's son's done that. However, this is just basically on steroids now, isn't it? It's like everywhere. It's like not only are you getting compared to your own family members or your relatives or the wider community, you are now getting compared and you're feeling yourself compared to the whole world.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's going to get a lot harder then, isn't it? Daljit, what do you think?
Absolutely. The thing used to be you compared yourself to who was around you.
Yeah.
And that's pre-social media. Now you can have a child sitting anywhere in the world comparing them to someone in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a fair comparison. And we are organized in a way where we compare ourselves to others, and even at a neurological level, we make judgments, we make comparisons, and then we have biological, emotional feedback based on that comparison. Yeah. So if you feel like you're the most successful, popular person in a room, and then somebody walks in and suddenly everyone's attention diverts to them, you will have biological feedback on that basis. So that's somebody in the same room. But we're now having this by looking at pictures on Instagram, right? Which, frankly, a lot of them are based on falsehood. I mean, I heard something really interesting about a photo studio somewhere where you can go and take pictures taken because they've got a studio that looks like the inside of a private jet.
Wow.
So you now have influencers pretending that they're on a private jet, right? When they've actually just paid to
just have a picture
go and have some pictures taken. And this is what average, regular people like us are comparing ourselves to. One of the other factors is the degree of complexity, right? So that's talking about younger people maybe, and how they feel about what their role is in life at the moment. While the causes of suicide can be so varied and they can be so multifaceted, mental health problems can be based on a chemical imbalance, right? It can be that somebody has much of their life in order, but they're just unwell in that sense. And they might need some kind of medication to help bring themselves back into kind of homeostasis. On the other hand, often you find people becoming hopeless because the problems that they're facing are piling up and the complexity is multiplying and they can't solve things. And it becomes, I can't solve the first problem, now I have the second and the third and the fourth. And as those complexities multiply, then people can start feeling hopeless, and hopelessness is a danger sign.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, and then when you ask for help, or you even think about asking for help, then these feelings of, but I'm a man.
Yeah.
I should be able to handle this.
And I'm glad you said that, because where does that come from? Where is that written? Where is that saying that we, who's putting the pressure on individuals to think and speak and act like that? Where is it coming from? Like, where do you guys think it's coming from? Family or?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it is around family. It's if you're not taught to, by the male role model in your life.
Yeah.
If you're not taught to express yourself, or you're only taught to express yourself like an on and off switch,
Yeah.
so either you're quiet or you're angry,
Yeah.
where's the middle ground? So if you're not taught that,
Yeah.
how are you going to learn it? So a lot of it is family.
And then obviously the other indicators and factors are what we've spoken about, comparing to others, social media as it is today. A lot of things that I've been seeing, because it's on an increase and it's been coming, is it because people have started to talk about it, or is it because there's more light into it? Or were these things there from day one, but it's only we're picking up on it now?
I think a lot of it is becoming more vocalized.
Yeah.
Because we now have a generation of digital natives, right?
Yeah.
People who have existed around the internet. It's been a part of their reality from the get-go. And they're used to talking to the whole world instead of just talking to your neighbor or your friend or a relative or someone nearby. So I think part of the changes that we're seeing, the greater vocalization of these things, I think a lot of that is to do with the changes in technology and the changes of culture that come with it.
And I'm glad you said that, because given the recent cases, what we've heard and what's happened, people have said we've tried to speak and this, that, and that. And Sameer, this is probably coming to you with the human hub. Sorry, you said something that if they don't buy into you, they won't talk to you. They won't open up to you. So, could you explain a little bit more about that as to what it means about getting a buy-in?
Yeah. So in terms of a buy-in, I think what I mean by that is fundamentally it's trust.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel a sense of trust with someone, therapist, friend, family, if you don't feel a sense of trust, you're not going to open up. It's as simple as that, you know.
And being at the Human Hub with, the therapy that you offer and the cause it is, you have those key questions and those key things that you look out for to have somebody there that you can open up with and they can open up with you. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, so what I would do in terms of both one-to-one therapy and what we've done with the support groups is there will always be a screening process.
Right.
So personally, I will hold a 15-20 minute call initially just to assess risk and for someone to just give me an overview of what's going on in life. And in that time period, they can decide whether they do trust me at some level. And then I would go on to provide a consultation or an assessment, I should say. And then we make a plan from there as to, what the goals of therapy are and how long it potentially might take, although we don't commit to a particular time. Some people it can be 6 to 12 weeks. Some people it can be, months and years sometimes. Same thing with the support groups. We make sure that we spoke to everyone at least for 20 minutes to half an hour beforehand, just to understand what their aims were, their objectives were, how we could possibly help. Because if there's a big risk, suicide risk, self-harm, for example, maybe the support group isn't right for them. Right. But then we can signpost to other services.
Because that's glad that you said that, because it's what made you start your support group, and that's pretty much answered some of it there into it, isn't it? It gives you how you would say an in-look as to what the key behaviours are and where to signpost, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this particular cohort that we're working with now, the reason we started this is about 3 months ago, there was a suicide of another young man.
Right.
It was another tragic case where a young person had taken his own life.
Yeah.
And back then, I remember talking to Sam and I said, this seems to be happening more and more frequently now, or at least as we've discussed, we're hearing about it more and more frequently. And that sparked off the discussion. So based on that, we said there's something that we've got to do, and this seemed to be one of the most efficient ways that we could connect people and start people talking. So that was 3 months ago, and now again we've had yet another tragedy. This has been very public. There's a huge outpouring of grief, and it kind of, when this came up and we saw it, it sort of reinforced the idea that what we're doing is necessary and needed.
So why is it that more and more Asians aren't accessing support services like the Sikh Helpline, the Human Hub Therapy, and organisations like that? Why is that?
So what you have with that is there are kind of recent studies that have looked at services, because there are a lot of services which are actually aimed towards ethnic minorities. And the questions that were asked in this kind of meta-analysis was, why is there not a greater uptake in these services? Why aren't people making use of them? And the range of answers was really interesting. Some people don't want a service which is directly connected to their community because they're afraid that, if I talk to someone within the community, word will get around. They don't necessarily trust that there will be confidentiality. Sometimes it's through a lack of access due to language barriers. People don't know the language, or they don't know those services are available. With the older generation, some people aren't making best use of the internet. So there's a whole range of reasons, and they range from mistrust, which is the biggest one. And like Sam has outlined, one of the key factors you're trying to build when you're working with someone is to build that trust. If people don't trust a service, they won't access it. And I'd say that's one of the biggest takeaways when I read that paper.
I mean, some people have alluded to and also made comments that we don't know enough. There's not enough exposure. There's not enough, advertisement for people to know that there's help out there. Me personally, I think, yes, they might have a point, but with the platforms the way they are today, i.e., the social media sites and, the influencers, whatever, everybody's on some sort of social platform and messages are being sent out and people are. It's a matter of, do you actually want to go and use those, or am I wrong in saying that?
No, people have to choose to engage.
Yeah.
Right? So
Absolutely.
I think what this ties in with is the huge stigma attached to reaching out for help.
Yeah.
So in a community, in the communities that we come from, we come from communities of incredibly courageous people who have been through the impossible effectively. And they've managed to stand up with their back straight and remain dignified despite everything that they've been put through. Now, that may have been the necessity of that time. It doesn't mean that those people didn't need help and didn't need to decompress. But some of that we've inherited, and let's be fair, there's plenty to take pride in that. But at the same time, to be so attached to that we deny ourselves help and we feel embarrassed that I need help. And the thing that I always say to somebody, if they say, look, I'm going through a thing and they feel embarrassed about it, I say, if you had a cold, you wouldn't be embarrassed. If you had the flu, you wouldn't be embarrassed. If you have diabetes, for goodness sake, you're not embarrassed. You look at these things as, you have a medical condition and you need that kind of help. Absolutely. Why be so embarrassed about just another thing which is biological in basis that you need some support for?
Absolutely. And go on, Sameer.
I was going to say the other thing is that in terms of qualified mental health professionals within the communities, we're still a rare bunch.
Yeah. And I'm glad you started onto that because, I'm going to come on to that question. So if you can bear with me with that one. What I want to learn is, what are you learning through running these groups? What are you learning first? And then I'm going to go on to the qualified rare bunch.
Do you know, I'm just going to say a massive thank you to the people that have made the time and the effort to join and attend consistently.
Right.
Because not only are we hopefully passing on some knowledge and wisdom to them, but we're learning so much from them. Absolutely. So thank you. One of the biggest things is we haven't made this a religious thing.
Yeah.
It's a South Asian male support group. So we've got people from all the major religions. And the biggest thing that I think I've learned is that when you're in this community together, you're one.
Yeah.
The problems are pretty common across all of the communities. And for us to be able to share that and realize that is so powerful, I think.
We have had people in the group say, I didn't realize that the problems in my community were shared by this other community as well. So we made a point of keeping it as something secular. And it feels like that was exactly the right thing to do, because the bonds and the connections that are now being built within this group and the trust that has grown out of it is you have people that have felt that they couldn't share certain things within their own community, which they now finally have an outlet where they think, I can come here and I can talk about this and it can be open. And we could sit here and talk all day about the learnings, but some of them are pretty specific to the group, so we wouldn't want to say anything that identifies anyone.
So It says here, can anyone start a support group? And I'm going to put in here like social media therapists, Insta therapists, Facebook therapists, things like that. I mean, floor's yours. What do you think?
It's a difficult one because, as I said earlier, the qualified mental health professionals with our backgrounds, quite rare. So where do you go? And in the digital media age, I'm sounding quite old now, but in this age, where do you go for community? You go to social media, and then unfortunately, social media, it's not that regulated. Even my profession has these challenges that there are lots of, as you call them, Insta therapists.
And what would a Insta therapist typically do then? What's their service? I mean, to them, they think they're doing something, they're good. But where do you see not going wrong, but where do you see some challenges coming?
No, I wouldn't say that anyone's necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
But the thing is, can anyone start a support group? Technically, yes. But when you have a qualified person or people leading a support group, they can be aware of challenges around safeguarding. I hold professional insurance, for example, to be able to hold these kinds of groups, and years of experience as well, dealing with many different people, different ages. So I can bring all that knowledge and experience to this. Someone, getting friends together for a chat, to offload, absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Community is such a big healer. Yeah. And it's so crucial to tackling mental ill health within the communities. But in terms of a support group, I would suggest that it's best to have someone that's qualified leading it.
I mean, you wouldn't go to a dentist to sort out your heart, would you?
Right.
I wouldn't.
So no. I think the important distinction here is if you want to bring together a group of friends and we're having something informal, that's very different than something where you have somebody with, like Sam, with a therapeutic background, who is maintaining an eye on the safeguarding. So in order to run this support group, we had to have paperwork in order. We had to have a manual ready. We have session plans. We have a lot of planning that went into place. And of course, the insurance, right?
Well,
we have to make sure that we're dealing with people who are potentially quite vulnerable. And there were people who we interviewed for the support group where the suggestion was, I think you have some very specific needs and I don't think this is the optimal place for you to be at this time. Right. And then they were signposted to other services. Yeah. So it's really, really important that, it's really important that people connect and talk. So we strongly encourage that. But I think it's also important to make a distinction between something which is therapeutic in nature and which is something a little less formal.
Absolutely. So you've heard it there. You've heard that there's nothing wrong with getting a group of people together, perhaps maybe having a chat, going to see a film, just going for a walk in the park, whatever, playing some sports. But when it comes to diagnosing and supporting and understanding an illness or an issue with somebody, you've got to understand that we are not qualified to be giving that kind of assessment. That's why if you're not well, you go to a doctor. If your car's not working properly, you go to a mechanic. It's the same steps for anybody suffering with any kind of illness. You would need to search out and seek out a trained professional. Now at the Sikh Helpline, as you can see today, our guests, we have a lot of trained and qualified professionals in every area, be it mental health, be it depression, be it alcohol, drugs, whatever. We have the right people to support you and get you to the best place where you should be. And this is what it just means, that somebody needs to just reach out and let us know you're suffering, because it'd be nice if we could have a divine intervention and know that we need to come here. But again, these services are only as good as you make them. If you access them correctly, they will be there for you. If you don't, then it won't help you, because the first thing we need to do is recognize that we need support. And if we keep covering it up and keep saying, no, it's not, it's bravado, it's this, it's that, we're going the wrong way, guys. Because you do that, you're just letting yourself have more weight put on your shoulders, and then you just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to go ahead with the thoughts, and the outcome is sometimes, or most of the times, they take their life, and that's not what we want. If you are having any issues, anything at all, reach out. We have the right people here to help you. Just reach out, please. Boys, I'm going to move on to something that struck a chord within the community quite recently, and I'm going to finish off there. What do we need to do to stop this going? What things do we need to look out for? If it's indicators, whatever, please, the floor's yours. With experts as yourselves, and the teams that you train and the people you train to give this service, I think it'd be best coming from yourselves, please.
So with indicators of risk, the things that we need to look for primarily are in people's language, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be the case that 100% of the time that these will be immediately visible. Unfortunately, sadly, like the very recent case, it seemed that a lot of people around the young man who took his life were very, very surprised, and nobody saw any indicators before. So it's not that we can give you a cut and dried toolkit, which is going to be guaranteed to work every time. But there are things that we should look out for which indicate that somebody might be at risk. Look out for their language. Look out for the language that indicates hopelessness. Look out for people saying things along the lines of, what's the point? It's too much. I can't cope. Sometimes I wish I just didn't have to deal with all of this. That can be a very surface level indicator. Deeper than that, if you hear somebody saying something along the lines of, if I wasn't here, nobody would notice, or another one, something along the lines of, my family or my friends will be better off without me, that indicates someone at greater risk. Something that indicates probably what I would say is the greatest risk in someone's language and something they might say to you is if they start getting specific and say, I might just take this particular step in a particular way. And by that point, all alarm bells should be ringing. So where things tend to go wrong, not that people aren't good people and not that people aren't trying to look after each other, but it's our instinct to just try and make someone feel better in the moment. So if I were to say to you, do you know what, I just really feel hopeless at the moment. There's so many problems, I don't know where to begin solving them. And you as a friend of mine might say, don't worry, Daljit, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And it's just, there's a little bit of encouragement and you're doing your best, but what's been missed out there is the depth of what's actually going on. Because
someone's just given you a hook there, haven't they? They've given you a shout for cry maybe,
right.
and somebody's missed it. Is
Right.
that am I right?
There
Absolutely.
there are very few deaths by suicide that where people say, one day I want to commit suicide, and the next day it's done.
Right.
It's very rare. There are indicators. There are thoughts that go on, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Ask a very direct question. If you're concerned, are you thinking about killing yourself?
How would that?
You are not going to. There's a misconception that if you do that, you will put that thought somehow into their head. Not the case. Absolutely not the case.
And have you had this in your support groups or in your one-to-one consultations? Have you had this type of case where a question like that was asked and it helped, it stopped, it gave them the support they needed?
I can think of at least one incident where I'd like to think it helped.
Okay.
But routinely in my practice, part of the risk assessment is suicide, is self-harm. And if there is a history of suicide, then I will monitor that regularly. Support groups, again, that is a risk factor. It has come up in the support groups. Again, we monitor the risk very carefully.
But you get the help though, because you're best placed to give the services that that person needs, right?
So the idea is, and like you just said, they've given you a hook, they've given you an opening, right? If somebody says something like that, one of the best things that you might be able to do for them as a friend, as a relative, as a neighbor, as a colleague even, is ask them to tell you more. Right?
Open questions.
Open questions. Ask them to tell you more about that. How long have you been feeling this way? What's causing you to feel this way? Because it's like trying to stop a boulder rolling down a mountain.
Yeah.
By the time somebody actually has a plan, right, and something that was very clear about some of these recent incidents is they were quite thoughtfully planned out.
Yeah.
The tragedy of suicide, which caused us to start the support group in the first place, that was meticulously planned out, to the extent that this individual had closed their bank accounts, had cancelled their car insurance,
Wow.
had cancelled their phone subscription. So there was thought that had gone into it, there was a plan that had gone into it, and then the person went and took that step. So if we listen and we ask those questions very early on, where you have the slightest indicator that someone's not doing the best, yes, we want to encourage them, of course, but if we start by listening, we might just be saving a life.
Absolutely. And there you have it, guys. That brings us to the end of this show today. I hope you've learned something from Daljit and Sameer, and I hope you feel a bit better placed that if you are needing any services or any support, you can access them. The Sikh Helpline's there, the Human Hub Therapy's there. Get in touch. Get in touch. You will not be stigmatized. You will not be judged. Your information is always going to be confidential. No one's going to know what services you are accessing. It will be a tailored, individual, one-to-one. But you need to let us know. And if you let us know, we are here to help. Daljit Singh, thank you so much for coming today. I wish you the most success in this. It seems like you're doing fantastic. And the fact that you're training the government, it just shows that we need to have more people like yourselves. From myself, Satnam Singh, and Sikh Helpline Show, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Hi everyone. So as we mark Mental Health Day, it's particularly important to talk about all the many difficulties we've all been through over the last 18 months. For so many people, the lockdowns were incredibly isolating and really took their toll on people's mental health and well-being. So I'm supporting the Sikh Helpline. It's a fantastic West Bromwich-based charity that provides support not just to the Sikh community, but beyond that. I've seen firsthand the fantastic work Gianni G and his team do in supporting the community across the country. Recently, they held a gruelling Edinburgh to Birmingham bike ride to help raise funds for their helpline, and it was a pleasure to raise this in the House of Commons chamber and for them to receive support from the Prime Minister too. So, for Mental Health Awareness Day, never forget that if you need to talk, there is always someone on the other end of the phone.
Mental health, like physical health, needs care. You and your community are your best doctor. Community could be close family, work colleagues. They spend several hours a day with you. There is no written solution. Rather a change to the way you live, think, feel, mostly small changes, some big but very necessary. You're not alone.
Mental illness is when it could affect your mood or your emotions or how you behave, or you might get in fights with your family or feel really depressed. And if I met someone that was having this problem, I would go and help them.
Many of us have struggled to maintain our mental health during the pandemic. Luckily, Samwell is absolutely full of positive community groups and projects that are there to support people and support their well-being. And the Sikh Helpline is one of those. They help people at the lowest point. They improve lives and sometimes even save lives. So thank you to everyone involved in the Sikh Helpline for everything you do.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Sunday 10th of October is World Mental Health Day. I think mental health means something different to all of us, and it all depends on our own take. But for me, my mental health is just as important as my physical health, and I try to look after my mental health just as I would my physical health. Here at the Sikh Helpline, we are here to support anybody who is struggling with their mental health. We are a counselling and advisory service by email and telephone. You can call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and speak to somebody about how you're feeling. We support in lots of ways to help people with their mental health who might be struggling. So we are here if you want to reach out and talk about your mental health and what it means to you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
I think from when I first made contact, my condition was quite severe in my immune system and my mental health. Over a number of weeks, maybe 5 or 6 weeks, I think my condition has improved a lot. My confidence has improved a lot. And some of the techniques that they suggested in being positive, confident, and be able to sort of go out and talk to people outside as well as the Sikh Helpline has helped me build my confidence tremendously.
Oh, that's
Hello, my name's Amarjit and we're here to talk about mental health. Mental health, there are 7 billion people on this planet today that will go through mental health, whether it's illness, corona, anything. But I've realised more and more with my mental health, bipolar, that the last few years, thankfully, people are now coming out, they're talking, they're not afraid of saying, look, you know, I've got panic, depression, anxiety, whatever, domestic violence, or I'm suffering and I need to talk to somebody or be with somebody, or I want to be referred. And, you know, there are so many organisations and helplines. If you need anything in that area, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Ring Sukha Singh on Sikh Helpline. But remember that only you can help yourself. Nobody can come knocking on your door until you tell them to. Tell them what you are going through and tell them, and be honest with it. Don't lie and think, oh, I feel embarrassed about this. Yeah, a lot of things are embarrassing. I talked to my psychiatrist and she's given me crutches to lean on. And mechanism, you know, self-help mechanisms that when you're in this environment, deal with it this way. For instance, I lose my temper very quickly. She says, just leave it, walk away, and then go back to it in your mind. And when you meet that person or that environment, say, look, I need to talk to you about this. I'm not happy the way you treated me.
Mental health is when people get emotions and scared, and those never get away easily from your mind. I will try to understand and I will try to help them.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Mental health is something that impacts all of us, but it's important to understand what mental health is. According to Gurmat, mental health is santokh. When we feel content, that is mental health. Depression, anxiety, stress, irritation, and everything else that gives us a level of distress is simply a feedback mechanism. It's not necessarily that there's something wrong with you, it's just that feedback mechanism that's telling us that we need to take some actions in order to ensure that we can restore our mental health. So what is the one thing that will work with mental health? Meditation. Meditation taught by the right individual in the right way. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
We've all been through so much during this pandemic. The world has shrunk, pressures have increased, and unsurprisingly more and more of us are suffering from issues such as anxiety and depression. The UK Centre for Mental Health estimates that 10 million people are going to be in need of support over the next 3 to 5 years. This could be the opportunity for the Asian community, who has traditionally avoided such services, to finally engage with them. It's time we changed that. It's time we broke the cultural stigmas and reached out. Reach out to organisations like the Sikh Helpline, who are there not only to listen, but understand the cultural context of the challenges that we face. Let's stop suffering in silence. Let's reach out for that help. And together, let's break the stigma around mental health.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name's Harpal Singh, and I'm a Counselling Services Manager for the NHS. I'm author of the book called The First Lap, which looks at mental health for the Asian community who suffer from domestic violence. I'm also a service for Sikh Helpline. Over the years, I've helped a number of people through their emotions, their thoughts and feelings, anxiety, depression, amongst others. And a lot of people have changed and worked on. But then you get some people who are scared, frightened of seeking mental health support, or the word mental health scares people. The stigma attached to it, what people are going to say, what my friends are going to say, what family are going to say. But working on your mental health is as important as your physical health. If you're physically struggling, you will see a professional. So when you're struggling mentally, why don't you seek a professional? Hiding away from the issue is not going to resolve it. It's about talking it through. Counselling can't change your past. They can help solve the issues and make sure that you can work with them in the future. My urge to everyone is to seek the support. Don't suffer in silence. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Hello everybody. This is just a small message from myself, Satnam Singh, about mental health. It's a massive, massive topic that not many people are talking about, especially men. They're taking steps where some people are even going to the lengths of taking their own life. Some people are sitting there and in depression, worried about how they will look, how, what people will say to them if they ever opened up or spoke about something that they're going through. It's a very delicate topic, and it's also a very delicate matter that people really need to start waking up and understanding that it's not just, oh, it's okay, it's, they're just going through a small phase. They're not. People are going through mental illness and are afraid to speak, but they shouldn't be. They should be able to speak to a friend, a loved one, somebody who they can trust. And again, if there's not somebody you can reach out to, there's organisations like the Sikh Helpline, who they'll have trained professionals, mental health experts to sit there and listen to what you have to say and give you the right support and point you in the right direction. We need to wake up and understand as a society as a whole, not just as Sikhs, but just as a society as a whole, not to ridicule somebody for the way they feel. Sometimes, especially in men, you're ridiculed. Oh, you're not manly enough. You're not this, you're not that. Oh, look at him, he's weak. I think you're probably more weak if you don't talk about it. I think you're more weak if you are the person ridiculing somebody who's suffering, especially when people have gone to steps and lengths of self-harming and even taking their life. That's not something that needs to be ridiculed. That's not something that should be taken lightly. Remember, support some people, support somebody, let them know you're there to care. And if you are somebody who's going through depression or mental illness, remember, there is somebody out there you can speak to, and Sikh Helpline's one of them. I hope this resonates. I hope this helps. And just remember, we are here to help.
Mental health include our emotional, psychological and social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act. It also helps to determine how we handle stress, relate to others or make choices. Now, mental health is something that we all need to talk about. And we need to take the stigma away from it. So let's raise the awareness of mental health. Let's let everybody know it's okay to have mental illness or addiction problems. From the Sikh Helpline 2021 and 2022, we are going to run a campaign. It's on mental health and suicide prevention project. To bring the awareness in the community, I feel personally community plays a very important role in helping those people who are going through mental health. And I hope we all can work together and raise the awareness of mental health. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
I think I would urge anybody who's having any sort of difficulty in their life, and we all go through difficult times, and sometimes we just do not know where to turn to. I urge anybody who needs any help in any sector, whether it's to do with mental health, abuse, finance, or any other crisis that might happen domestically. I urge them strongly and not to be afraid to pick up that phone and seek support. I believe that you will benefit tremendously from the Sikh Helpline. Please don't hesitate, don't worry, don't fear, don't think you're being judged, don't be self-conscious that you can't make this call. Just pick up the phone and somebody's there ready to hold your hand and guide you and help you through your difficult times.
Thank you very much, really appreciate it.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Marking World Mental Health Day, we ask ourselves, what is good mental health? Are you looking after your mind, body and soul by practicing physical movement, inspiration, meditation, gratitude and good sleep? It's important to look after your mental health. You're not alone. Reach out to us, the Sikh Helpline. We're here to help with mental, emotional and wellbeing support. Please contact us on 07 999 004363. We're also available across social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Please get in touch if you need help. You're not alone. Look after yourself.